Welcome to the short version of Insights, a Canadian Journal of Political Science podcast. This episode, we talk to Florence Dubois regarding the topic of parliamentary speeches and her work titled Parliamentary Debates in Canada, 1901 to 2015. For a more in-depth conversation with Dubois, you can access our long-format podcast on the same Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube feed.
Our paper analyzes who speaks in the Canadian House of Commons about what topic and whether these two things are related to procedural rules in Parliament. So what we argue in the paper is that rules can influence the structure and the content of legislative speeches. And to investigate this question, we rely on a quite recent data set of every speech ever pronounced in the House between 1901 and 2015. And we rely on various types of analyses to investigate these speeches, from word counts to speech counts to methods in natural language processing, in order to identify the different topics that are discussed in the House. And what we find is that government and opposition frontbenchers make more speeches when debating in the House, but government and opposition backbenchers tend to make longer speeches when participating in debates of the Canadian House of Commons. We also find that government backbenchers have had more and more chances to intervene during the debates over time, even though they still remain the group of MPs with the fewest speaking opportunities. We also analyze the role of procedures in all of that. So we first find that procedural topics, as we say, are very much present in debates. So they are present in about 20 to 30% of speeches made between 1901 and 2015. And we find that the introduction of new rules was associated with how much procedural talk has been happening in the Canadian Parliament. We also confirmed that procedural talk is more likely to be controlled by party leaders. And then we look at whether procedures are associated with an increase in party polarization in the House. And we find that it is, which to us suggests that one needs to be very careful about procedural talk when trying to scale ideology from text data. So if one wants to do an ideological analysis from text data, one should be very careful about the presence of procedures in the data.
Thank you for listening to Insights, a CJPS podcast. For the long format of this episode, visit us on Twitter at CJPS_RCSP or subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube.